right, everybody. It's SecKC 101 time. Yeah, let's hear it. All right, this is the intro for those of you who haven't been before, or those of you who just like to watch somebody fumble through the slides because they haven't done this before. So, all right, SecKC, the biggest and bestest monthly InfoSec event in the world. Second Tuesday of each month, Kansas Hall, Overland Park. First thing you should know, meetings are unrated. You have been warned. If you are not an adult or don't feel like acting like an adult,
you're in the right place.
Exactly. Number 2, SecKC Code of Conduct. If you have any issues whatsoever, look for someone with the yellow badge.
What if it's with Bill?
Especially look for someone with the yellow badge.
What if Bill has a yellow badge?
Find somebody else. Rules of SecKC: destroy no data, maintain no persistence. Above all, do no harm. Shenanigans are
Encouraged.
woo! Yeah. State and federal law enforcement officers are encouraged and do attend SecKC meetings. We do not keep a member list nor any list of meeting attendees, therefore we cannot provide this information to anybody. Everyone is approachable. We encourage you to walk up to someone, introduce yourself,
Except
ask.
for the cops. Don't talk to the cops.
Well, that depends on if you have any outstanding warrants or not. Especially don't talk to the cops if you have outstanding warrants.
How are you supposed to know that? Yeah. How do we check if we have warrants?
Ask the cops. We encourage you to walk up to people, talk to them, teach and learn from each other, challenge ideas, not people. We are all adults here, sometimes treat each other like such. All right, during the talks, be quiet unless you're in the back behind the STFU wall.
Is this considered a talk?
No. You can yell all you want during this. It can't go any worse. For those of you who don't know what the STFU wall is, it's that big thing back there that says Boulevard on it.
What does STFU mean?
It means... Exactly. SecKC happens because of volunteers and sponsors. Make sure to check back in the back with Exabeam, who's our sponsor tonight. Tell them hi. Get some of their awesome swag. I'm sure they've got awesome stuff back there. Thank them for buying you pizza. And save some of that pizza for me, damn it.
STFU.
Be the change you want to see at SecKC. Is there something we can do better? Is there something that you want to see SecKC do? Get involved. Volunteer at SecKC. We're all volunteers. If you want to get involved, right there, seckc.org/connect. That's how. We use Eventbrite to order pizza. That's the only thing Eventbrite is for, is so we know how much pizza to order. So we really appreciate it if you do RSVP on Eventbrite, but you don't have to use your own name. We can all RSVP as Bill.
Do the cops read the Eventbrite thing?
Probably.
We've had one request that we said no. No?
Well, they can look at the Eventbrite site, but they can't see the list. SecKC on Twitter. Follow us at sec_KC. We're also there as without the underscore. That's not the one we use. So follow the other one with the underscore. Otherwise, tag your tweets with SecKC. Log on to Slack. Join the channels. New slide. We're doing donations tonight at the swag booth. We've got some awesome stickers here. And we're collecting money. If you want some of these stickers, you need to make a donation at the SecKC booth, or at the swag booth back in the back once I get it set up. And you can get these stickers for a donation. We're collecting money for the Kansas City Center for Inclusion tonight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, fuck $5. Yeah, fuck $5.
One sticker, a donation of $5 gets you one sticker, $10 gets you a pair. It's that easy. Also, back in the swag booth, if I've got extra pint glasses left over from the InfoSec showcase, any donation will get you a pint glass. It can be $1, it can be 12 cents, whatever you got. This is our agenda. 4 o'clock, make excuses time. Hopefully you already did that, otherwise you're probably in deep shit. 6 o'clock, SecKC 101, you are here. 6:15, SecKC open source intel briefing. 6:30, Archwisp brings the beats. 6:45, Badge Pirates and DEF CON update. 7 o'clock, Postmortem and new tool release. Aaron Crawford, Insider Security. And 7:45, Triwolf and Geoda run as a double-edged sword. It's going to be awesome. And that's all I got. Enjoy yourselves.
What's up, everyone? Oh, hi. You guys are more awake than I am tonight. It's been a long week. I wish it were Friday, but actually I like Tuesday. I like this Tuesday. Those of you that don't know what this is our open source news brief, which is a really fancy way of saying that I stand up here and I try to fill you in on what happened over the past month. I usually swear a lot. I usually stumble over my words. It's really funny. We do this in the Ignite format. There's 15 seconds per slide, and it's pretty good. So if you want the links, I will post them whenever I get back into town. And yeah, it'll probably be tomorrow morning. So, all right, without further ado, so it turns out back in 2016 that we had a press release published. Back then, TeamViewer said, hey, yeah, we didn't get hacked. It was your fault, users. False. It was, in fact, TeamViewer's fault. Fuck you, I knew it. Fuck you, boss. I told you, goddammit. Anyway, read more about it. Uniqlo breach happened. So this was Uniqlo Japan. 461,000 customer accounts breached, included your address, your phone number, who your name is, your credit card information, just the first 4 and the last 4 though. Ironically, we had the web seal of trust injected with not 1 keylogger, but 2 keyloggers. One of them was installed April 24th, the other one was installed a week before this was published, which was like sometime in May or some shit like that. We have an exposed database. This is nothing fucking new, unfortunately. Look at all that information you can get from there. 8 million people who participated in online surveys, sweepstakes, and all that shit that you see come into your mailbox. That's those people. All their information exposed. Wah, wah. Wow, another fucking database. This one involving a game, like something called Game Golf, I'm sorry. It's something that people who play golf use to track how good or bad they are at golf. Let's see, we had usernames, hash passwords, emails, your gender, Facebook ID tokens, all gone. Fuck, another one. This one is actually 85.4 gigabytes of fucking information of an Elasticsearch database. This was actually for Pyramid Hotel Group. This is for internal shit. This is security alerts, system errors, policy violations, shit like that. OGusers.com got breached. This is a forum where hackers go to sell shit. Other hackers breach this forum, and it's just like this one giant pissing match between one another. I think it's pretty fucking funny. 113,000 of their forum users essentially got doxxed. We had a large health information breach, actually one of the largest in quite some time. Here we've got a timeline of ones that happened over the past few years. This is another big one. This one included patient names, addresses, dates of birth, gender, and medical claim information. So, yeah. We had digitized records of a title insurance company, 100 fucking million plus. Were available. This included your bank account number, your bank statement, your mortgage, your tax records, your social security numbers, your wire transaction receipts. How fucking long does this have to go on? Point of sale malware, so I'm pretty sure there's still a rallies in Kansas City fucking somewhere, but about 102 of their 900 locations were breached with point of sale malware. One of them in California had been breached starting as far back as December 2015, so fuck. This is like my nightmare. I work for MU, those of you that don't know. Fucking Australian National University had 19 years of records stolen over like a 2-month time frame. Like, holy fucking shit. Like, you might as well just close the fucking doors at that point. Quest Diagnostics was breached. These guys are like another medical type agency. Basically, this is one of those, oh yeah, we don't actually do that, but this person that we hired to do that does that. So my friend of a friend of a friend got breached, which means I got fucking breached. Get bad stuff. So Stack Overflow got breached, but I'm actually not gonna fucking lambaste them because they responded to this quite well. They said, hey, we got fucking breached. We're gonna let you know what happened. A little bit later, they said, hey, here's what the fuck happened, and here's what we're doing to fix it. And they didn't say, you know, oh, we're increasing our fuck it. Baltimore has been under ransomware attack for going on like 3 fucking weeks now. I believe the most recent estimated cost is $18 million. So, damn, that sucks. They were actually trying to get it designated as an emergency to get federal funding. Precepts is some company that, let's see, I can't even remember what the fuck they do, look them up. But their personal data, including Microsoft Exchange and Access databases, ERP databases, HR records, Microsoft SQL Server data, so on and so forth. All that was there. Moving away from breaches, so now we've got some threat actors, StarCraft Group, the tactics, techniques, and procedures utilized by them, documented by Kaspersky, kind of a cool teardown there. You can take a look at that if you like more information about it. That's my cover for when I lose notes. We had more open MongoDBs, but these guys actually just decided, you know what, fuck it. Ransoming it, it's not fun. Let's just fucking delete it. Whatever. I mean, can you blame them though? I mean, shit, that's what, 12,000 fucking MongoDB instances, just delete it. So, homograph attacks are not anything new, but we are seeing them still. A group did an interesting teardown on what client-based mail clients can let you see these attacks or not. Like, is it gonna look like it's real or not? Muddy Water is another fucking group that they did another teardown on. Talos did this one. The interesting thing that I think about these is that you see, you know, it's interesting the techniques or their C2 infrastructure and everything, it all starts with a fucking Word doc, or it all starts with just the simplest fucking shit. Skimmers are getting just a little bit smarter, so this one acted as a payment as a service, so this was a rogue iframe. Basically, this company doesn't actually take your credit card information. They fucking outsource that to another company, but you wouldn't know that if you visited the hack site. Of course, everyone knows that political propaganda is being posted on social media rampantly. It has influenced a lot of things in recent history. This is an interesting teardown from FireEye about that and sort of a who's who and a what's what of what's been going on. Definitely check that out. We've got a piece of malware that is plaguing, I think, the Google Play Store. Yeah, this is called, they're naming it Beta Plugin. It's essentially just a piece of adware. You download a thing and it's like, oh yeah, it does the thing, but then it plays too many ads and now I can't use my fucking phone. Hidden Wasp is a threat that they have labeled. This is targeting Linux systems. So at the time of writing of this article, it had a 0 detection rate on VirusTotal. I'm sure that's probably changed now. Again, I know VirusTotal is not the best fucking metric for these things. Anyway, interesting piece of malware. There is a really cool article on IP disclosure of Tor users via cache 301 poisoning. Basically, look at that diagram there. Yeah, that's what the fuck happens. Read it yourself. The teardown is pretty good though. Really, I thought, God, these go on so long. For those of you that like to hack your own stuff, you like to practice your offensive security chops, Damn Vulnerable Crypto Wallet has been released. I don't know, man, that looks pretty fucking secure to me. It's asking me for a one-time PIN. Shit, probably false advertising, man. All right, so we got some tools coming up now. First up, we've got Magic Copy. This is going to be something that maybe red teamers are going to use. This is a set of PowerShell commandlets that allow you to very quickly exfiltrate data using an AES encrypted link. Hooray! No one knows what's going on. RDP Pass Spray is another tool that came out as well. Again, there are a lot of RDP brute forcing tools out there, but this is a new one. And I mean, given that Bluekeep is a thing, you know, we're all waiting for that weaponized proof of concept to come out. This might be of interest to, yet again, you red teamers. Local File Inclusion Tool, or Liffey version 2.0 is released. This is essentially just something that you can use in order to more automate the process of finding local file inclusion vulnerabilities on something that you own. Of course, we would never use it on something we don't own. There is a really cool reverse shell cheat sheet that was posted on GitHub as well. Again, oftentimes I don't really like cheat sheets, but I thought this was a really interesting and very, very detailed cheat sheet. So again, probably not perfect. Go contribute to it if you think it fucking sucks. There is a cool guide here on how to build a honeypot using a Raspberry Pi 3. Again, we've actually had talks on this here at SecKC, but again, to observe RDP attacks. Again, Bluekeep being such a big deal. It's actually such a big deal that I assumed you all fucking heard about it and didn't include a slide about it. San Francisco is banning the use of facial recognition technology by police, which hopefully we all think that's a fucking good thing. This is a terrifying technology. We are seeing it used in China. I'm not going to get on a fucking political soapbox here, but anyway, scary shit. There was an interesting vulnerability where people could steal downloads from Slack users that are using the Windows client. The blog post goes into really big detail there, but essentially, if you trick someone into clicking on that link, it will change a setting in the Slack channel until they change it back. Turns out, if you pay someone to negotiate your data in a ransomware infection, most of the time, according to this company, they just fucking pay the ransom. Yeah, that, I guess, does get the data back sometimes. BGP hijinks have been occurring, and this has been kind of happening more and more. I want to say actually 2 or 3 happened this month, but this one was a large swath of IPs once again being routed through to China Telecom. I don't believe they've figured out whether this is an accident or not. This is apparently a piece of art that sold for like $1.5 million, which is cool because that means like all of my users are fucking Banksy. So, I mean, how did I not tap into this unknown resource path? LinkedIn's TLS cert expired, not for the first time, but for the second time. Wah, wah. Again, this isn't that fucking hard, especially not if you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like, what the fuck, guys? So we had Georgia wound up saying their Supreme Court has stated that the state government does not have an inherent obligation to protect citizens' personal data. This goes back to a guy whose information was in a Excel spreadsheet breach. And, oh God, yeah, read about that if you'll get pissed off. McFo LLC, this is a company that's actually run out of St. Louis. It got in trouble and finally had a lawsuit settled with Aaron where they have to give back about 750,000 IPv4 addresses that they stole. I'm so sorry, I'm fucking getting over a chest cold. This is a pretty cool blog post actually, talking about where do these dumb fucking names for attacks come up from. Kind of cool, check it out, Spectre, Meltdown, etc. Didn't just get pulled out of the ass, although it sounds like they were. Then finally, we've got a sort of opinion piece here on the Huawei sanctions. So this is sort of a perfect storm of events where Huawei is just getting fucking shit on by like every industry player right now, and what that means. So yeah, you can take a look at that if you want, and that's the news.
Oh, I am sober and that's still bright. How's everybody doing tonight? Having a good time? Well, I look at it in this crowd and I see a lot of human chests and none of those chests are blinky. Which is... Sure, baby. You know it. You know, oh God. Oh, now I really can't see. That's so bright and white. Oh God. So, a few years ago, I go out to DEF CON for my second time out. First time I went out, you know, you go out, you get this badge, they're like, oh yeah, the DEF CON badges are always pretty unique because, you know, they don't want people counterfeiting them. Because there's a bunch of hackers and nobody wants to pay $80. That's right, when I started going it was $80 to go to DEF CON.
You're old.
I'm old. So, and we paid in nickels. Anyhow, so the second year I go, they've got this crazy looking badge and everybody's mind was completely blown because it had 2 LEDs. 2 LEDs, and you could push a little button and you could make them blink in different patterns. It was the most mind-blowing thing ever. Well, apparently that was fairly popular, and now the blinky badges are completely out of control. And every year they keep getting more out of control. Luckily for you, we have a local group of people that tends to raise this shit to a different level every single year, and what I am staring at right now is really blowing my fucking gourd right now. So, get out your fucking money and get ready to give the badge pirates some money. Here is Rickson, who is going to tell you about what they are going to do with your money.
Thanks, Jared. Hi, everybody. I'm Rickson, and I am one of y'all. I'm part of SecKC. And we have a crew of people who do badges and that kind of stuff. Badge pirates. And they're back in that corner. Say, wave hi, everybody. And yeah, we make badges for DEF CON and other conferences and stuff. And for pirates. So anyhow, this all started a few years ago. Network Geek and FG were out at DEF CON and running around tracking down all these badges and stuff, and I had just started going to DEF CON again at that time, and I kind of like, hey, this is interesting, this is cool, and we could do this, and we did. And the next year we had the first SecKC badge a couple years ago. So we did it again last year, and and the demand's not stopping, so we're doing it again this year. So, what I've got to show you tonight is basically what our badge is going to be. I have an early prototype, and
One question.
yes, question.
Don't take that, fix it.
Save all your questions until the end. No questions. So, we are running into challenges. This is, how many people here have soldered before? Okay, that's great. I can't see anybody, but I assume everybody raised their hand. So, we all know what it's like to build electronics, and we know it can be tricky at times. And every year, we try to step up the badges, and we do. And well, for the SecKC badge, we want a badge for us. That is us. And so we did it again this year. And we had some ideas. We went out to the crowd and asked some people what they wanted to do. And out of this, we kind of formulated an idea together. So we've been working for several months on the design, building a prototype, getting that going. And as you all know, DEF CON is less than 2 months away, so the clock is really ticking. And that is really kind of pushing us on the design process. We're not 100% done. I'd say we're 80, 90% done. So what we were hoping to do tonight was actually say, okay, here it is, give us your money. But we are not quite there yet. We have a few challenges. First of all, the design came through okay. We had to make some sacrifices and changes from the original plan. Yes, it happens, Change happens. So what do? We deal with it, and we keep moving. And that's what we did. But so now we are trying to figure out the manufacturing deadline to get all this stuff done, see if we can get everything at a time. So no questions. No questions. Questions not allowed. So what we are doing instead tonight is we will have a sign up in the back. We will take your email. And when that happens, what we're going to do is hopefully by the end of this week, get the final design down and a final cost down and be able to open up pre-sales to everybody. And everyone who signs up tonight with their unique email address.
Just want me to show that in front of the camera so everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. I see. I'm on the infinity screen. Whoa! All right. So we're going to come down here shortly, and I'm going to show you all what we've got. But we're going to build anticipation until then. So just bear with me. Bear with me. So yes, we're not going to start the sales tonight because we want to be sure that we can deliver in time for DEF CON and give you all what you want in a quality product. So what we have here, and you're going to see me from a distance, and I'm going to walk up to the screen here and show you all. Here is, now don't mind the little rat's nest here because my little controller, this is what stage of prototyping we're in. The controller is kind of hanging here, but this green thing right here is basically the badge that you see. I'm going to walk up to the screen to give you all a close-up. But I guess, let me show you what it looks like powered up right now.
Take it off! Your bits! You can do it! Shock yourself, huh?
Okay, let me plug it in. So Jairus told me in a talk once that you should always do live demos. And so that's what we're doing here. Always, somebody cut the yellow wire. Oh. Here we go. Let's plug in this yellow wire. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so the badge doesn't work, and that's what you're all buying tonight. Thank you. So I'll come down here and give you all a close-up. $11 billion. Oh, we need light. Can somebody shine a cell phone light over here? Oh, that's a good idea. I should do that.
Oh, shit!
So here is our badge.
Holy
This
shit!
Okay. Let me tell you about the badge. We heard y'all like blinking lights, so we've got 645 LEDs on this badge. Yeah, 12.3 seconds. If you try hard enough and you do DEF CON right, then yes.
This is so weird looking.
Oh shit, here it comes. Let's hear it for the fucking badge pirates!
Bill, give Rickson the mic back.
I said no question. Okay, so as you can see here, what we have is a design with the 645 LEDs. It is driven by two ISSI 31FL3741 drivers. These are I2C controlled drivers. We'll have a microcontroller on this mezzanine board here. And our production prototype at the top of Bob's head, you can see a little chip. Those chips are going to move down to the main board. This a mezzanine board, that's what we call this second layer board that gives us our 3D relief. This is going to control our, this is what gives us the controller, the microcontroller on here. And the battery package, that's something we're actually working to get the battery package between Bob's head and the actual LED board here. So that's one of the challenges we're working with, trying to get this in time. And that's part of the reason we're not quoting these yet. So one of the challenges in the manufacturing process, hold on, I'm gonna go back on stage. So some of the manufacturing challenges are here, are whenever we get a badge made like this, robots build this. It's called a pick and place machine. And the pick and place machine will pick up each individual component and set it on the board. So even with an LED, even with a machine that does these LEDs, it still takes quite a big amount of time. So that drives up the cost in manufacturing. The other challenge is the individual cost of the components. Well, when you have 645 LEDs, like one of the manufacturers is charging, what was it? 6.5 tenths of a cent more than we could get it here in the US. And because of that, that alone drives up the cost $5 per board. So what we're looking for right now is finalizing how to get the cost down here to a reasonable amount. And
Who wants to pay $45 for LEDs?
yes, so as it is right now, we're looking about $45 just for the LED. So we're trying to get this into the reasonable part range. But the plan is with the once we release, and why we're collecting your email addresses tonight in the back corner here, is by getting everybody's email addresses, we will send you a link, a one-time use only link, so you can buy a single badge. And the idea is you will get a badge that's very close to cost, just covers a little bit of our overhead expenses. It'll be the cost of the badge. Unfortunately, we're getting these made in China, and that means the tariff that is in effect will also come into effect, so your badge is going to be 25% more than it would have otherwise have been. We got to deal with shipping, we have to charge sales tax in Missouri, so all of these things kind of come into play. But we'll have better information, and then once, we're also going to open a general sale to everybody, and those badges are going to be much, much higher. So the idea is to give the cost to all of you folks, you know, the SecKC discount. So go ahead and sign up in the back here in the far right corner, the stage right, and then we will contact you with the information. So are there any questions? I'm sorry, no questions. But you can come to the back, see the badge in action, you can sign up, and you can ask us questions for real over there. Just a moment. Oh yes, and please do not tweet pictures of the badge or other stuff. This is still pre-release information, and it's just for the SecKC crew only. Thank you.
Give it up for Rickson. And the bad fucking pirate.
Alright, I'm gonna hijack the mic. For y'all who don't know, I'm Archboost, but y'all know, don't need to know who I am. Y'all tearing up shit. So, you hear the sound that's coming out of this microphone? No?
Yes!
Yes?
It's quite offensive.
Yes or no?
It's quite offensive.
I'm not clear. Did I get an answer?
Sound comes out of the speaker.
But how did... Okay, fuck you. We have a team of people who just fucking kill it every month, right? They volunteer their time to make sure that you guys can hear what the fuck the speakers are saying up here, and we got great music. So, can I have Sky and Greg and Aaron, the guy at Missouri State, Aaron, and or whatever the fuck it's called, and Jim, please come up here. These guys work their asses off, and a while ago, we decided that we were going to have these shirts. And so we made these for the people, and they get shirts. So give it up for them. They work their asses off, right? Okay, I'm gonna wait for silence. For those of you who are gonna complain that these are not soft shirts,
Hey, wearing those soft shirts, you jerk!
I'm gonna introduce you to a concept.
Nice sunglasses!
It's called a downy ball. All right? You can wear this shirt for 10 years, and you can put a little fabric softener on it, and it'll be fantastic. All right? So don't fucking complain! Thank you.
Thank you! And you get no beats because all the other people are here. Yeah! Sorry. Right!
All right. Here you guys go.
20 minutes or less. Awesome. So I'm hijacking shit. Good. Cool. That's fine.
All right, we're good.
I'm bringing it back. Cool.
All right, so we have no dramatic music this time, but let's get ready for our second errand of the night. Aaron Crawford is here, frequent speaker at SecKC, and he has technically two talks wrapped into one. He's going to release some new stuff that you've never seen before, but will probably want to go home and use. And he's also going to talk about some of the broader implications of some of the jobs that we do, or maybe that you're interested in. For example, how do you deal with the fact that you got your entire building's internet turned off because you decided to run a scan, maybe with some permission, maybe it just didn't go as planned, but then half the building's kind of pissed because they can't get their email anymore. I still have my job. Hooray! All right, let's give Aaron a big round of applause.
So, I know it was listed, and I'm not going to do any of that tonight. So instead, we're bringing back the 5-minute tool talk real quick. And this is something I wanted to bring to you guys and wanted to make sure that you all could do. So we're going to do this in 5 minutes or less. This is open for anyone and everyone. So pick a tool. Doesn't matter if you want to show that Nmap has a T-timing section of up to T11, you can do that. It doesn't matter what tool you have. We just want you to come out, show a tool, help everyone out, share what you know, show something cool. Create a 5-minute talk. If you don't want to do a full talk, create just a 5-minute talk to discuss a tool, show you how you use it and everything. Submit the talk to SecKC. Go out to seckc.org and submit the talk. And then share the fun with everyone by presenting the tool. So to bring this back, I wanted to bring a tool and something new to you guys. So, how many of you know robots.txt? So this is the new hotness. This is ads.txt. It's for all the approved advertisers out there and third parties. And it's absolutely awesome. IAB Tech Lab created it as a standard. It's pretty much going to be our next tool for the next few years if you're doing web apps and web assessments. It's awesome. But don't worry, we're going to have stuff for social engineering with it as well. So no matter what you do on any website, in the root directory, you'll have the domain name such as www.seckc.org, then /ads.txt. If you want an example while we're messing around right now during this talk, go to cnn.com/ads.txt. The BBC even has it. It's everywhere and everyone's using it. It's great because it has a consolidation of all the approved third parties that that website or that entity deals with. So if you're into social engineering or social operations, that's a juicy target list for phishing. That's a juicy target list for impersonation, because that's all the approved groups that target deals with. It's also awesome because it has all the subdomains and a large chunk of subdomains in there as a standardization. So if you want to, you don't have to run DNS brute to get some really juicy stuff. Just go to /ads.txt. This is also supposed to be all the approved users, all the approved information, and third parties that deal with advertising. So there's a lot of great stuff inside this. The recon potential is just awesome for this too. So as you can see here, this is CNN. At the bottom, it's always going to be the same since it's a standard. You have the subdomains. There's a large chunk of subdomains that don't always show up. They're always going to be in ads.txt file. It's awesome. Up above, you're going to see all the configurations of the groups they deal with, who they are approved to sell advertising with or through those third parties. Their Google ID, the Google AdSense, all those IDs are going to be there as well. Again, this is awesome for social operations. So every single one's going to contain a standard format. No matter what you do, and no matter what you encounter, version 1.0 and above has a standard format where you can get all the information that you want, and they're starting to include new bits of information in these. So wouldn't you like to be able to find these in a fun, new, automated way, easy to use? There's now a Metasploit module available for this. You can download this right now. It's available for use. It'll go out and find the ADS.txt. It uses the only variables of R hosts, so if you want to, you can include multiple hosts to search through, and then you can change the amount of threads that it uses to go through, so you can go through, run it faster, allocate more resources and whatnot. But this is great for you to run through as your preliminary part of an assessment. You can go out there and pound a whole section out there and see, does it have ADS.txt, and if it does, it's always going to be in that root directory. You can pull it up and find out all sorts of stuff for your engagement. All you have to do is, once you've downloaded that from the GitHub repository, throw it in as an auxiliary module into Metasploit and run. This has not been released. This is the first official public release of this tool. You do not have to create a new tool to do a tool talk at SecKC, but I wanted to make sure that we had something special and fun and drop something new. The other fun thing about this that I am not showing tonight is, as you've seen with this file, it's all the automated whitelisting of ads and whatnot. Yes, this can be weaponized. Yes, this can be turned into a botnet. Yes, this can be turned into a worm. I'm not going to show you that. You can play with that on your own. But again, play with this, have some fun. I want to encourage people to go out and do tool talks for the upcoming events and meetings. Just submit a talk, whether it's simply using Nmap, whether it's using Nikto, or something that you think is simple and benign. It's meaningful to share it with everyone here to save time, get people started, have a starting point. No matter how simple you think it is, it's important to present it. So give it a shot, and I would encourage everyone to do a tool talk from here on out. That's why we're bringing it back. So with that, I'm going to shorten this other talk up into a topic that's normally a lot longer. And one thing that we usually don't think about is what happens after the assessment. What happens after you do pen testing? What happens at night when you go home? What happens when you walk away when the pen test is done? So no one's found the Easter egg in this picture about who I am yet, so I'll put it online. You can have some fun with it, but we don't have time. We have less than a few minutes here to finish this up, so come find me after the talk if you want to know more about me. So security is kind of tricky because we always complicate it with technology. And at the end of the day, security is an emotion and a human state. That's all it is. Your sense of security is different from Bill's, which is different from Corey's, which is different from Brian's, which is different from the other Aaron's. We each have our own personal designation of security and how that pertains to us. No matter what, at the end of the day, security is built on trust. And we tend to forget that with all the technical elements. And if you run social operations, this is your bread and butter, knowing that you're violating those trust models, you're trying to get into places, you're trying to fool people, impersonate people, and do everything violating trust. But a lot of what we do, we need to maintain trust with clients, with individuals, with people in public. That's one of the great things about SecKC here is we extend our community out, we open it up and we expose it to everyone, and we show what the hacker community, what the InfoSec community, the Freaker community, everything else is about. But at the end of the day, this is all about trust. So we always want to make sure that we keep that in mind, whether you're breaking in somewhere or whether you're going home at night. A lot of people come up to me and go, hey, you know what, I do social operations such as social engineering and everything, but when I get home at night, no one trusts me, no one will allow me to give them a present. True story, my own dad will not let me give him anything that plugs into a USB port. He will not touch it, he knows better. That's changed though over the years that a lot of my family members will allow me to give them USB pluggable things because I have a hard designation as to where work starts and where work stops. Most people know me that I'm a mercenary. At the end of the day, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to hand you anything that's going to cause problems unless you're handing me a paycheck. I put a hard stop and a hard barrier in place with most people. And that's how I've had to build up trust over the years, so people, even here, will understand if I hand you something, it's not weaponized, it's not bad, it's actually benign. I set up a series of things that allow you to have trust and validation, and that's what you have to start doing in your life outside of work. Part of that is leaving work at work and setting up a hard barrier. Whenever you set up an engagement, you need to think this way. You need to think about three things: the client, the human element, and the company, your company involved. Always have those three things compartmentalized and at the center of everything that you do, because you need to maintain trust and the barriers in between them. Such as the client. You don't want to go through and pull a fire alarm and a client to clear someone out of the building. That does not measure anything within the scope. It violates the law and it violates trust models that people have in place, such as you hear the fire alarm, you know to walk out in an orderly fashion to leave the building that's on fire. You don't want to violate that trust model and use that as part of your assessment. So always keep that in mind. The other thing that we forget about with the human element is how damaging and how fragile it is throughout our work. How many of you work at home or work remote? How many of you don't see another human being for like days on end because of your job? That does start to take a toll on you over time, and it can impact you whether you're trying to reintegrate back into the workplace or just starts to drive you crazy. I personally turn on the radio or TV so I hear some sort of human contact when I'm working alone at times. You always have to take that into consideration. If you're working with a team, make sure everyone on your team is aware of what's going on, is in contact, you're talking to them, and they're all kept aboard so that no one's just kind of out there on their own. The problem is when we forget the human element within security operations, it's something we can't recover from. It takes years and years and years of trust and building and resources to build up that human element. Think about when you lose someone on your team, or someone gets fired or someone quits. It takes a lot to train someone back up and get them back into operational mode where that person who left is at. So it's always keep in mind where things are at. Again, I said barriers earlier. Always set up barriers throughout your life, especially in security operations. You always want to set up something such as telling your friends at home, hey, I will not hack your Facebook account or your ex-girlfriend's Facebook account because I'm not on the clock. I set up a hard barrier of work being when I'm on the clock and when I get paid. You should do the same as well so people aren't afraid, they're not upset, they're not intimidated by what you do. And a lot of times people don't understand what we do. We're all a bunch of nerds at the end of the day. So set up barriers not only with visual and physical, but also set up verbal barriers such as no, or no thank you, or no, I will not hack your ex-girlfriend's Facebook account. Personal identity is another thing we need to keep track of that we all lose. We suck horribly in this industry when it comes to marketing and branding. We do very well in excelling on social media and branding ourselves and branding things, but we don't market ourselves well. A lot of the times in this industry, we confuse personal identity with a marketing message or a branding message. Those need to be separated out. If you want to know an example of this, think about someone big or popular or someone well-known in the industry. Think about where they work. Think about what they do and see if you can separate those three elements and see if you can pick out details from those. If you can't, that's someone who's failing at that. You need to create a separation of your personal identity and brand as well as your own life. because a lot of these things will bleed together very easily in our business. They'll contribute to burnout and all sorts of other horrible things and mental issues, and we need to start looking at that a little harder. The biggest thing that you can do is you can always say no thank you or no to someone, or say no to establish a barrier to create a separation between home, work, and other things. Again, maintaining trust is a key element because that's all our entire industry is based upon. One thing I always do is I run out when I meet new clients is I run around in a suit. I get made fun of a lot, but I want to show respect and trust to my clients, showing that, hey, I'm here, I respect you enough to get out of bed, put some clothes on, put a suit on. I do that to help maintain trust. Also, communication helps maintain trust. Communicating nonstop to both like your clients as well as those around you is key. To everyone who always asks, hey, how do you keep people from not trusting you or keep people from continuing to trust you, the key to that is maintaining trust, and the easiest way to maintain trust is through communications, such as telling people what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and what the barriers and the boundaries are for that. Boundaries are only communicated through open communication and trust. Again, I'm trying to keep this as short as possible, so I apologize. The other thing is, a lot of these things we don't consider in our operations and our security assessments can follow us home. I used to do social engineering engagements and not really pay attention too much to what happened. I didn't really pay attention to the verbiage as to what happened at the end of the engagement as to what the client did. Moving forward, I learned to start asking the client what happens after the engagement, what happens after the fish, what happens afterwards, because I always inject now from here on out that no one gets fired. Back in the day, I didn't consider what would happen, and I had a security guard greet me at my own driveway at home after an engagement, and he was pretty upset because he got fired and his only means of income was terminated because of my security assessment. So always be aware that this stuff can follow you home. That's also why you need to add boundaries and barriers and separations in what you do. Add hard, defined boundaries. If you're working with a client, suggest to them rather than termination, point out to the fact that once that person is found faulty in a phishing engagement or once they're fooled in a social operation, that's going to become an advocate to help them with their security awareness program. Terminating them is going to cost them a lot of money. It's also going to be something that can bite you in the butt later on. So another thing to help add barriers physically to you is phone numbers. We take for granted. We all use our own phones. Sometimes we have company phones, but sometimes we use whatever is easiest available to us. The easiest way to help protect yourself is when you're on engagements, when you're dealing with clients, when you're dealing with other people, pick up burner apps. These are great. This is like having a handful of SIM chips in your hand. You can sit there, change the phone numbers, you can switch phone numbers, you can ditch phone numbers, you can text, you can SMS, you can do all the fun stuff you can. And it's great because it all terminates to your phone. You don't have to get another phone, you don't have to get another SIM chip. It's awesome. So I highly suggest that you start using some of these things to add a layer of privacy and anonymity to your daily life when you're doing assessments. So if you need to, you can start an assessment and hand out these phone numbers on a burner app to the client, to the point of contact. It all terminates to your cell phone, but when the engagement's over, you can trash that phone number, you can burn it so that no one else has that, so you don't have a security guard following you home and greeting you in the driveway at night. Another thing that we run into a lot is legal issues. In our business, we are literally forcing things to do and operate in a way that they should not be and they are not intended. Part of that is that we end up violating laws that we may not know about from time to time. In social operations, we sometimes take for granted that we're going to record phone calls or we're going to videotape something. You can't do that a lot of times. You need to look up and see if you're allowed to record the conversation. And do not use Google. Google and the internet is not your legal friend or replacement for a lawyer. An example of this is the recording laws. If you Google recording laws in a lot of states, such as Delaware, you will find that there are journalism links that state, hey, it's a single party consent state in Delaware, meaning that only one person has to be aware of the recording, which is you, so you can record Bill without having to let Bill know that you're recording. However, there are privacy laws that supersede that, and there are other laws that supersede that. So Delaware is a all-party consent state, and you wouldn't know that by looking on the internet. You need a lawyer. It's really hard to find lawyers in our industry and business because sometimes, one, you can't afford them, or two, you may not have something available, but you do. One of the best resources I found is find a local college with a law school, and they have free legal clinics. There's some here in town. KU has a great one. K-State does. Even Washburn University in Topeka has law clinics and law stuff to help you out at their law schools. Bar associations are great too. Reach out to them, ask for recommendations, tell them what you're doing. They'll give you a list of people to call. AVVO.com is a great shopping list to go around and start looking at local law and everything. And in our case, if you haven't donated yearly already this year to the EFF, you should. The EFF is a great resource for us. It helps protect us, helps put out a lot of resources in the community for security and whatnot to keep people like us out of jail and out of prison, which is great. But always look up and get legal help first, because there is not a replacement for actual lawyers and legal help. You can play a lawyer through Google and look stuff up, but it's not going to help you out in the long term. Another thing that we need to look into more and more now is, and I'm sorry this is a short talk and I'm not going to get into mental health stuff, but this is more of, we need to set up more support systems in our community. We are so lucky to have SecKC here. This is one of the world's largest security meetups that happens monthly. We have a support system here where you can help others, you can reach out to others, you can ask questions, you can network tonight. If you haven't, I would introduce yourself to at least 2 strangers tonight, because there's a bunch of cool people in this room. But in addition to that, go to local meetups. There's OWASP, there's all sorts of other meetups and things around here that you can reach out and find others that have similar situations that you do, or other issues and problems and things that you run into. But try also going outside of your job and outside of the bubble that you have created by your job. Go to something like, I suggest trying to go to the ISC Squared meetings that happen around here, or try going to ISSA meetings locally, and see what happens. See who you can reach out to and set up a new support system and extend your network to help you out. In addition to that, this is something I believe very strongly in, not only for the contractors that I hire and work with, but for my employees. We set up telemedicine presence for counseling. In our jobs in security, we run across some pretty harsh things, whether it's forensics. If you're in forensics, you may run across some interesting things on people's computers. Other jobs and other positions, we're keeping really crazy hours. You're working different hours, you're working different tasks, you're doing different things, and it takes a toll on you. You're also dealing with content and a highly competitive environment that no one else, no other industry has. So you need to take care of yourself both physically and mentally. And there's a lot more resources now in this day and age to help you out mentally. BetterHelp and Talkspace are 2 things to start out with and look into. You can actually sit up there and sign up and do basically like a Skype meeting with a licensed psychologist and practitioner and set things up. So if you're afraid of leaving the house, if you're afraid of talking to a stranger about issues or problems, these are great resources to work with. I hire these out and use these as benefits for employees so that they have things they can deal with, they can work through stuff, they have this available. It's a great resource. There are hundreds of them now. These are 2 just to look at and get started with, but don't discount them, because they're a great resource to use, to utilize, because you might be doing things that take a toll on you and you may not realize it with your job. Part of burnout that we don't diagnose in this industry is the lack of fulfillment. And sometimes in this job and industry, it gets really harsh where you're trying to do stuff, you're trying to get management to understand that, for God's sake, why do we have open Wi-Fi connected to our main network, connected to our production on a flat network? And you're always fighting an uphill battle and a losing battle day in, day out in this industry, and it can take a toll on you and contribute to burnout, because you don't have that fulfillment of completing things. You don't have that fulfillment and satisfaction of getting somewhere. And that's where I encourage people to reach out and get some help, just to discuss with someone, talk to a professional. You might find some resources and things that you didn't even realize before. And with that, I was trying to put 2 talks together really quick, really short. If you have any questions, find me running around, just come bug me and whatnot. But again, I expect the SecKC.org website to crash tonight with all the submissions for tool talks, because all of you can submit a tool talk. It is easy. You don't have to write something new, but submit something.
Oh, it's those lights again. All right. Everybody enjoy a little break? Sorry you didn't win anything except for that one guy that got a boss pair of headphones. If you guys like winning free shit, then you should find other vendors to sponsor stuff, and then you can enter to win free shit. Yeah, we love sponsors. You know what else we love is people that submit to do talks. So today, when I was at the office, when I was at home before I came, I went through all of the submissions and I took a look at what we've got coming. We've got a lot of good talks in the pipeline. We need your talks to be in the pipeline. So if you want to get up here on stage, get introduced by me, and then maybe try to make the speaker explode, you should submit a talk as soon as you can. Make it a good one. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Okay, a couple reminders. Sunday is Father's Day. Yeah, how about that shit? I am fucking thrilled. This is my first Father's Day on the receiving end of this nonsense. God. I hope I don't get stiff the way I did for my anniversary, but that's a whole other thing. So, yes, thank you. I'm planning on it. So, that means if you have a father, which I am guessing that almost all of you do, you should go back and buy your dad some swag. Because that's the perfect gift. Buy SecKC swag for Father's Day, except for me. I don't need any more SecKC swag. Okay, next. All right, for our second talk of the night, it is my pleasure to invite two of my favorite people from SecKC up to the stage. Giyoda and Triwolf are going to talk about how you can abuse Microsoft Windows at your work environment to do things that you're not supposed to. Like maybe run things as Bill Swearingen. Yes. So, let's give these two kids a big round of applause.
Test. Hello. You guys hear me? All right, so my name is Eric Ian, go by Giyoda, this is Lauren, Triwolf over here, and we'll be talking about some purple teaming activity that we did, specifically around the run as command, which is built into Windows. So let's go ahead and jump in.
For the record, I would just like to be formally known as Bill Swearingen. That's me. So, really quick, before we jump into run as and abusing it and purple teaming it, we're going to talk about purple teaming and what that means. Right now, purple teaming is the new hotness. It's like cyber threat intelligence of 2017. Everybody's saying it. Usually they're giving a presentation with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and a lot of people don't know what it means or how to do it properly. So this is just kind of some of our suggestions, what it means, make sure we're all on the same page here while we're giving this talk. Before we move forward, hopefully to help y'all out, it helped us. So I'm assuming everyone knows what red and blue is in the security space, right? Offensive versus defensive. If you don't, I'm also assuming that you can read. So Eric found this lovely infograph. Please read that, make yourself familiar with red and blue. Spoiler alert, when you mix red and blue together, it makes purple. So today you learned. Oh, now I see Bill walking up here. All right, I'm gonna pause. Do you want the mic?
Uh-oh. Hey guys. I don't know if you know this, but we have a tradition here at SecKC. And I think both of you have already been on this stage once before, but I think this is your first long talk, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we have a tradition here at SecKC. It's your first time to talk, you get shots. All right, so down the hatch.
Thanks, Bill.
Cheers.
Thanks, Bill. Oh God, it feels like Vegas. By the way, speaking of Vegas, follow DEF CON parties on Twitter, everybody. Right? Okay, so let's get back to it. So what is purple team? It's when you mix red and blue. Congratulations, we're done. Have a great night. See ya. Yeah, so it's what happens when you mix brings your red and blue teams together in an operational sense. It's the cohesive enterprise operations between red and blue team. And so for the managers in the crowd, like, super awesome, because you don't go have to post a new job rec asking for a purple team member, right? Like, this should occur between your existing offensive and defensive teams. And primarily, it shouldn't feel like a second job to your red and blue teams, right? They should naturally evolve into this. They should feel like this is something that they want to do, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Is your mic muted? Okay. And it kind of boils down to a common goal of protecting the company. We're all hired for the same reason, right? We're here, we're being paid to secure our organizations. We just kind of go about it in different ways. So for this talk, we're talking about purple teaming from an organizational level, but I really want to encourage y'all to pursue being a purple individual. And that means work on your weak sides. If you're primarily a pen tester, reach out to people in the community who do blue teaming. Go do Hack the Box if you don't do that frequently. Develop yourself. It's going to make you more marketable, and it's also going to make you a better security practitioner. So a really important note, it's not enough to just leave tonight and go to work tomorrow and say, hey boss, I'm doing purple teaming. Promote me. Yes, right? Purple teaming takes a lot of work, and you really need to focus on making it actionable and have benefits for both sides. There needs to be outputs that are tangible for everybody. So why purple team? We talked about kind of what it is. It sounds like a lot of work. I'm really sorry. But it boils down to making both teams better. Practice kind of makes perfect. And what I like to say is I'd rather Eric attack me during the day instead of me getting woken up at 3 in the morning with a legitimate threat. So I'd rather be prepared with somebody I know who sits across from me and makes my life a lot easier than get woken up and, oh my God, it's Russia, right? It also, again, for the managers in the crowd, it helps prove your business investments are working properly. So managers, you can go to the board and say, hey guys, remember that $5 million you gave me last year? Yeah, it worked. I don't need any more money. Or you can get ahead of it and say, hey, we haven't been breached yet. I need X number of dollars, whatever systems, more people to make sure that we're protected. And ultimately, it drives budget, process changes, resources, and development. The adage of squeaky wheel gets the grease is right. So if you're telling the same story with two teams backing it, people are a lot more willing to listen to what you're saying. And also you can give two different perspectives, two different metrics, and by your powers combined, you will get what you need. Okay, so we talked about what it is, how you do it, or why you do it. Now we're gonna go into how you do it. So the number one thing you need to do is foster a relationship between your teams. Security can get really intense because we like to think we are members of the military sometimes, and we talk about TLP, and we talk about engagements and exercises and all this fun stuff, right? And so people get really aggressive. And I know I'm guilty of it. I'm like, I'm gonna catch Eric and Johnny and Donnie, so help me, I won't sleep till I find them. And that's not the environment we want. It's healthy for me to say, Bill, you can't catch me. Nice try. It's not healthy for me to say, Bill, you suck. I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you're never going to be as good as the IR team, right? So managers, you need to watch for that. Start by building some kind of human relationship between your teams. Encourage them to talk. It doesn't have to be about security. They can talk about baseball or how the U.S. women's soccer team just scored 13-0 against Thailand and set a new world record, right? But you want to make sure that everybody recognizes each other as humans and they have this connection and they understand we're here to protect the company. That's what we're here for. And then you need to baseline your team's knowledge. In a lot of organizations, teams are unevenly matched. You've got pen testers who've been there for 25 years and talked at DEF CON and released exploits and blue screens of death and all this, and then you can't keep a SOC analyst for more than 6 months. And that's not good. So you need to understand where both of your teams lie. For managers, again, it's never cool if your CSO comes out of your purple teams and says, well, my blue team sucks. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take those 10 SANS trainings I have, instead of splitting them 50-50, I'm gonna split them 80-20. screw you, red team. We got them, boys. Like, that's not okay. You don't want to penalize the people who are doing well, and you don't want to inject artificial growth into your team. So small, slow, and steady, excuse me. And then next, you need to create clear and measurable goals, milestones, and checks. You need to be able to prove, like, yeah, this extra work we're doing in this purple team initiative is actually working. Spoiler. And then finally, we'll kind of get further into our presentation, you need to engage in actionable activities. They need to yield benefits and outputs for both of your parties. So pen test ride-alongs. If your blue teamers have never seen what a pen test looks like, stick them on. Let them see what it really looks like. If your red teamers don't know what it's like to work an incident for 48 hours straight,
Fire them!
no, you're staying up for 48 hours with me. Nice try, Brian. Right? Also, like, a really easy way to start, day-to-day operation. Eric, what are you working on? Bill, what are you working on? Going to Denver and never coming home. But also a really, really fun way, which we're gonna get into, is specific research projects, where you pick a topic and dive super deep. So, this kind of leads us into our specific topic of research, run as, and abusing that. It's a commonly used Windows feature, and we both kind of wanted to learn more. I read a blog about it, and I was like, what is this wizardry? I'm never sleeping again. We're all doomed. There's no point in my job. I can't see anything. And Eric was like, I don't know what the blue team sees, but I'm just gonna make it that much harder and screw them, right? This is fun. So, without further introduction, I'm gonna let Eric kind of walk you through from the red team side what this run as research project looked like.
Go, Eric! Yeah!
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, absolutely. So during our purple team engagement here, or exercise, we had a bunch of questions that we wanted to answer while we were diving deep into something like this. So we'll first start off with a little bit on like what run as is, you know, why is it bad, or maybe it's not bad, right? But how can it be used maliciously? We'll go a little bit further into who is likely to use something like this, if this is something we can even detect, can we defend against it, and then maybe a little bit about how a attacker maybe even be able to circumvent some of the defensive controls that are in place to keep using a tool, something like this, right? So to begin, what is run as, right? So by Microsoft's definition, it is a run as allows a user to run specific tools and programs with different permissions than the user's current logon provides. So for all you Unix and Linux people out there, it's similar to the sudo and su command, right? So you can switch users, sudo up to a more privileged user, similar to that, right? So run as was introduced back in Windows 2000. So very, very old. It's been around for a couple of decades now. It's been built into Vista and beyond. So we're all pretty much familiar with a tool such as run as, right? So a scenario that we can kind of all relate to is when you're installing software that requires administration permissions. So in order to install some software as an admin, right? Like back in the day, we'd have to log out as our current user, log in as an admin user, do whatever we needed to do, log out, and then log back in as that user, right? So it's just very tedious work. So run as kind of defeats that, so you can just kind of do it all at once, right? So here's an example, a little demonstration of this. So we have a user called Billy, right? So Billy is just a regular user on his Windows 10 machine, and he wants to install Wireshark, right? So Billy tries to run Wireshark from his command prompt, and he gets prompted with this UAC, this user access control prompt saying, you need to be an admin in order to do that. Put in those credentials, right? So, okay, Billy won't do that for demonstration purposes. So he gets access denied, right? So instead, what Billy can do is actually utilize run as to run the installation of Wireshark as an admin user. So in this case, we're using Bob to install Wireshark. Bob happens to be an admin, right? And he is Bob, right? So Billy is Bob. He knows Bob's password. So he runs this installation. He punches in Bob's password, and now instead of that previous, prompt that said you must be Bob, well, now you are Bob. So yeah, are you sure you want to install this? Of course I do. So now you're at the installation screen, and you can continue about your work, right? So Billy can now run as Bob, right? So why is this bad? Well, it's not bad. This is actually exactly what run as has been built to do. But it can be used in very interesting ways. So specifically, there is a switch within run as. It is the /net only switch, right? So it's a command within run as that allows you to run net only. So it actually indicates that the user information specified is for remote access only. In other words, right? So when you start a program with run as /net only, the program will execute as your local computer as the user that you're currently logged in as. So previously it would be Bob, right? But all connections that are done remotely on the network are now originally it was as Billy, but all remote commands now on the network will be Bob. So just kind of let that digest for a moment, right? So a scenario is something like being a developer that has a VM on their workstation at work. So this developer is at work, he's on his host machine, and he has a VM in order to test something, right? So this VM that he pulled down from whatever.com, some Windows ISO, it's not joined to the domain. So his host machine is joined to the domain, but his VM is not. However, he can use run as in order to perform his actions that he wants on that VM as if he was on the domain, okay? So, also another scenario is something like a QA tester, right? So this QA tester wants to maybe test something that requires multiple user accounts. So instead of having multiple workstations that has user A, B, and C or whatever, he now has the ability to use run as run as user A, run as user B, run as user C, all from the luxury of his own workstation, right? So there's an example there, run as /net user, or excuse me, net only. Specify the user, specify the domain, and then whatever application you want to use. So here's an example of that, right? So an example of switching between users utilizing run as could be something like this. So we have a user called Frank. So Frank's on this domain called whatever, Geoda Lab. So Frank now has a command prompt, and he wants to run as a user called Edward. So he can use run as /user, specify the domain, which is again Geoda Lab, and the user of Edward, and he wants to spawn a command prompt. Of course, he knows the credentials for Edward, so he successfully gets this new command prompt. As you can see up at the top, it might be a little bit small. This new command prompt is now running as Edward, right? And as well, if we use, who am I, we're running as Edward. So Frank is now Edward. Awesome, right? So to continue this a little bit further, kind of just diving deeper into this rabbit hole, right? So now that you're Edward, so Frank is now Edward, and he wants to run as again, this time specifying the /net only switch to go back to Frank, right? So he does that, wants to spawn a command prompt, and after punching in the credentials, he now has a third command prompt session. However, if you look up at the top, it's now running as Frank, but if he does who am I, it's actually running as Edward. So it kind of goes back to the original, right? This is network only. So Edward here, locally he's Edward, but remotely he's Frank, right? It's crazy. So whatever. I don't understand. Not a big deal, right? Well, why is this so harmless? It's not. Well, actually, it can be. So think of a scenario, right? We all put on our bad guy hat, right? We want to use something very simple like run as, and how can we make it bad, right? So think of a scenario. let's say you're a bad guy, and you walk into this office building, this company's building, right? You walk on in, security guy's propped up watching YouTube videos or whatever he's doing, right? And you sit down in the lobby and you plug your laptop into this network port that just so happens to be right by your feet, right? So you plug in your laptop as a bad guy on the network and you get an IP address because of course this network port is hot. Of course they didn't turn off any type of network port security. So now you have an IP address. You're on the network. Again, maybe harmless, I don't know. But imagine that this attacker has domain credentials, right? He has a domain user credential. He could have gotten this something easy as phishing, because phishing's easy, right? Send out an email, click a link, get some credentials. Awesome, right? Or maybe he runs something like Responder, a tool that can just harvest hashes and you can take it offline and crack them or even relay them. So Responder is awesome, by the way. So he obtains these credentials and now he can use run as in order to replicate himself as a domain user. So what's the problem with this? Well, because he has his own workstation, he brought in his own laptop, right? He controls his laptop. He doesn't have AV on there. He doesn't have any type of logging on there. He doesn't have any type of privileged access management software. Nothing that your IT department has worked so hard to put on all your endpoints. It's not on his workstation that he now has access to the domain with. So just to demonstrate something like this, right? We have that same scenario where a bad guy plugs his computer into the network and he's running a tool called Metasploit, which is an attacking tool. It's ran with PowerShell and it allows you to do really bad things. So one of the commandlets is get net domain. As you can see in big red text there, this guy is not on the domain. It says current security context is not associated with an Active Directory domain or force. So this computer that he has walked into the lobby with is not on the domain. We can also kind of drill that home by running system info, piping out, find string of domain, and we get the domain of work group. However, like we were saying earlier, if this bad guy has credentials of a domain user that he captured from whatever way he wanted to, he can use run as and that /net only switch, utilizing or pointing the user to PowerShell. So he wants to spawn a PowerShell prompt. After putting in those PowerShell credentials, he can now run get net domain again, and instead of getting all that error message, he actually gets information of the domain. So this user, or this bad guy, now has access into your domain from a workstation that is not joined to the domain or managed by anybody. And if we run system info again, we're still in the work group because locally, we're not on the domain. This workstation is not joined, but remotely in this PowerShell session, we are. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking, well, that's pretty messed up. How can we use this maliciously, right? Well, there are many ways we can use this maliciously. The world's your oyster. Think about whatever you want to do. A couple reasons, or a couple things you can do. Running Bloodhound. Now that this guy is on your network, let's run Bloodhound. Let's find the most optimal path we can in order to attack a specific person or go after a specific computer. We can run some type of curb roasting attack. Well, we have access to one user, why not get more users? Let's run curb roasting, let's get some curb roast tickets because now we are a domain user, and let's drop down those tickets to a hash that we can crack online, or offline, excuse me. Or, even worse, let's use something like DC Sync. It's an attack that's pretty nasty. It allows anyone that has domain admin access on the network to perform some type of synchronization with a domain controller, basically saying, hey, I'm a domain controller, let's synchronize data. Specifically, let's get your user information, maybe some hashes, and now I have all the things. So in this demo here, we have that same session, right? So the attacker has abused the user of Alice on the domain, right? Alice so happens to be a domain administrator, and now we take this PowerShell session, we drop it down to a command prompt, and we run Mimikatz. Well, guess what? Because we're on our own workstation that has, does not have whatever type of AV that's installed on the network or whatever logging that we have on the workstation or any type of controls that are distributed on all your endpoints, they're not on this person's workstation because you utilize run as. So Mimikatz runs just fine. So to top it off, let's run DC sync, right? Let's point it at the domain, let's point it at the domain controller, let's dump everything, and now we have all the hashes. Now we can just walk away, get a really strong foothold into the network, and have all the accounts that we want. So, yeah, have fun.
Damn it, Eric. All right, so basically, if you have Active Directory in your environment, we are screwed. Woo! Right? Like undoubtedly, if we have AD, you have some user who decided that Spring 2019 was a great password. And guess what? Eric's gonna find that. So sorry, blue teamers, we're just gonna go home. Like, I don't know. But that's not true. So we can go through what you can do to detect and defend against this run as abuse. But we do need to talk about who's likely to be attacked. If you use Active Directory, which I feel like most of us do, unless magically your board approved getting Macs only. I don't know if that even would work. But this is due to a higher likelihood of group overlap and wider access to elevated credentials. Again, undoubtedly somebody has forgotten that you are a DA, Bill, and they forgot to remove you, and we are all doomed, because Bill's a DA. Or your servers. Also, previously compromised users and endpoints, that's a great attack vector in. So with run as, this is usually a second stage attack point. This is usually a lateral movement or privilege escalation where they're trying to get further and further and further until they've got a vice grip on your PCI servers or the keys to the kingdom and you're screwed. So if you have endpoints that antivirus signatures aren't being updated, or a user who has just decided like, hey, yeah, I keep getting these emails from have I been pwned? What do I do again? Right? So these people are the first targets. They're your initial foothold. Those are what your attackers are going after first. And even commodity tools like Emotet have given access to systems. Attackers don't really have to build their own access tool anymore because Windows and Microsoft have done it for them. So it makes it a lot easier. Thanks, Microsoft. All right, so let's get into the fun stuff. Yay, blue team, woo! Thanks. I heard like 4 cheers, love it. So let's talk about how we can detect Eric. So a really fun way and kind of the overarching theme of this is anomaly detection and trend analysis. It's very hard because these kinds of things blend in. Eric's pretty much become a part of my domain, and unless I really know my environment well or have something set up to detect changes in my environment, I'm not gonna see him. So one thing that I highly recommend to report on, but not alert on, distinct differences, are different host names that are associated with users. So if Eric normally logs in from host 1, and then he logs in from host 2 tomorrow, I wanna know about that. I probably don't wanna have an alert come to my incident response team because that's gonna go crazy, right? Like executives get new iPads all the time, people decide that they're just gonna switch laptops in the middle of the year. It becomes very hard. But we do wanna understand when those types of changes happen. And again, going back to baselining, you wanna understand what that looks like in your environment. I'm gonna be a big Microsoft shill here and say, you need ATA. You need Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics on your domain controllers. Microsoft has said, wow, trend analysis and like user behavior analytics and these types of things are like the way of the future, man. We're gonna build this into a tool and we're gonna sell it to you. Woo! Go Microsoft, thank you for your defense. But ATA is actually super, super cool. It parses your authentication and authorization logs on your domain controllers and builds profiles of your entities and your users and tells you when something deviates from that. So maybe it won't tell me when Eric decides to be host 2, but it will tell me when host 2 decides to try to poison my main DNS servers, right? It'll tell you about anomalous activities are occurring. Again, a lot of overhead goes into this, so just be prepared to set it up, as most security tools are, but it is a super helpful thing to do. A key part of this, though, you need ATA on every domain controller where authentication occurs. If you have it half deployed, you're going to see half of the traffic, and you're pretty much going to be blind. Next part, domain controller logging. Kerberos tickets show account authentication, and it can help show hosts that are not normally, and that should say, not normally associated with that account. So 4769, that Windows event, a Kerberos service ticket was requested, is a great way for detecting this. And this kind of has similar blue team detections for Kerberosting. It's a great indicator of lateral movement, and you can use it to watch for anomalies. So if a service ticket was requested from host 2 and it has never been requested before, we want to know about that. Windows event logging on your host. This includes Windows event forwarding to your security teams. This can be really hard, and it doesn't really help the fact that Eric brought his own laptop into our lobby and plugged it in, and now has decided to do whatever he wants to do. But it can help mitigate our threat on managed endpoints. So 4624, everybody's favorite logon event type. Look for logons with type 9. This is tied to the new credential type, and Microsoft says this is a caller cloned, which cloned its current ticket and specified new credentials for outbound connections. This is a new logon session that has the same local identity, but uses different credentials for other network connections. Now, a super important part on this logon type 9 and 4624. These are starting to become less and less common as we move into Windows 10, pretty much. So, a really, really great way to detect, and we've kind of proved this out when we were watching Eric's testing, is looking for logons with explicit credentials 4648. And Microsoft specifically notes this in the documentation that is likely tied to run as usage. So if you don't take anything from tonight, please just take the fact that you need to look at your 4648 logs. And finally, like if you really want to get, into the weeds, execution of runas.exe on managed hosts is a really quick and easy win. We want to see who's doing this. And one really important part on this is just remember, prevention is nice. I would love to prevent Eric from coming into work and doing these things to me, but detection is a must. So if you do not have the visibility, you don't have the logging, that is the first argument you need to make. You need to be able to see what happens, even if it is post-compromise. Just don't log?
No, you fire Eric and he won't come to the job.
Listen, I have so many more problems than just Eric. They just keep coming. I can't stop them from hiring red team people. No, Eric's really great. I just use Eric because he's next to me. So let's talk about what threats have actually used run as. Again, compromised managed endpoints, easy attack. They already have a foothold. That's the first thing that they're going to go after. But we also see tools attempting to elevate privileges, specifically leveraging runas.exe or its PowerShell counterpart. So rats have been seen using runas, PowerSploit and Metasploit, obviously, two big names. Cobalt Strike has been using it. Oh, Jesus.
Stop. Who saw that 4648 shit? That was fucking amazing. So for that, you two get another shot.
Thanks, Arthur.
Fuck.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. I really do need to know who's taking me home now. Okay. I guess not Bill. Specifically, Empire and Posh C2. These two do something that's super, super interesting. So they leverage invoke-runage.ps1, which is a part of the Fuzzy Security Suite. This is a PowerShell alternative to runas.exe, And if you're just looking for runAs.exe, you are never going to find this. You need to look for its PowerShell twin. So Empire and Pashi 2 both have those features built in. How can we defend? Okay, we can't. I'm sorry. The world is ending. We can't defend against this. But what we can do is we can put rocks in their shoes and pray that they make enough noise that we catch them when they're trying to do something worse. And this is important because we cannot stop everything. We cannot stop everyone. I'm sure everybody in this room has a story about not being able to stop the bad guys. But we need to make it harder for them. That doesn't mean we don't try. So we can use layered defense to stop low-hanging fruit and make it a lot harder, at least on the managed hosts, and maybe a little bit harder on the unmanaged hosts if we don't leave ports open in our lobby, to actually abuse runAs. So to stop it from being called by CMD, you need to remove permissions from the System32 exe, first bullet point. Super easy. Now, as Eric noted, there are legitimate uses for this from developers or sysadmins. So don't go do this tomorrow at 8 a.m. and just like leave, right? Talk it through with your risk management team and talk it through with managers. Second, you can remove access from App Locker for managed hosts. This will stop that pop-up from coming up where it says like, who do you want to install Wireshark as, Lauren? Do you want to make it Eric? I don't know. But this is also super helpful if you're already using App Locker to manage your Windows deployment. This is a really, really quick and easy win. If you already have these profiles built in App Locker where you can say, Eric's an accountant, Bill is in marketing, they never need to do runAs. Great, easy win. Also, you can do registry key changes on managed hosts. So you can remove specific key values from the registry, and these are in the notes, so if you want them later, it's like 8 values. Just remove them from your managed host. Authentication silos. And this is where, if IT people were in this room, they'd be telling me, Lauren, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what we need, stop talking. Authentication policy silos are a way to contain high privilege credentials and like crown jewel systems. So if I am a DA, I would put a policy saying, Lauren, as a DA, you should never be authenticating to a domain controller except from your MacBook. If we ever see anything else that's wrong, you're banned, you're fired, something's happening, right? But if you have people who work remote, if you have 85 domain controllers for whatever reason, or if your DAs have just been allowed to run amok in your environment, this is going to be a really hard fight to fight. But it's a really important fight to fight as well. It really helps minimize the threat vectors and bring down what people can access. At the very least, you should be logging on these things to say, I want to know when Eric tries to access DC1 from a host that matches my standard laptop naming convention. Even if you don't block him, we still want to know about that. Again, detection is a must. Of course, to stop Eric from coming into my lobby and plugging in whatever computer he comes in with no controls on it, port-based network access control is really easy and everybody should be doing it. We don't want people bringing in their computer, hooking into a random cube and being like, well, I'm torrenting now, screw you, DMCA, it's all this company's fault, right? So make sure you lock down what's open. Don't leave hot ports available for anyone to come in and watch porn or torrent or do whatever they want to do. And finally, limit privileged account authentication to specific machines. This kind of falls under the authentication silos. But if you don't want it to sound as scary, you can just be like, well, we're limiting your ability to authenticate to a specific machine.
Thank you, Lauren. So yeah, those are a lot of things that can defend, log, protect yourselves from bad guys. But there are ways that an attacker can even circumvent something like this, right? So I know Lauren mentioned a lot of things that can log, right? But as far as defend, it's a little bit harder, right? So as an attacker, maybe we just go the easier route. So one of the first things, we kind of go back to that developer that has a VM in order to perform normal work functions, right? Well, all that traffic is getting routed back to that one network interface that the developer has on their workstation, on their host machine. So what that guy can do, what that developer can do, is actually create a second network card, or plug in a USB network card, and actually have that VM route traffic through that one instead. So now, when you're running traffic from your VM, it actually goes through this other network card that actually doesn't have the controls that your host does. So one way to actually kind of prevent yourself. So number 2, unmanaged device. Lauren already spot checked on this. I mean, it's pretty hard to do that. On the network level, you can, but if you bring in a device, such as Eric's laptop from home, it's a little bit harder. The third way, I know Lauren mentioned a little bit about some NAT controls, some 802.1x, ways to defend yourselves against port-based security. Well, there are ways to bypass that. Specifically, maybe there's a VoIP phone that's on the network, right, or a printer. I don't know. So these devices, they're a little bit dumber. They don't have AV on there. I don't know if you can actually put AV on a printer. Maybe you can, right? So maybe an attacker just unplugs the printer and puts his own laptop in, changes his MAC address, and says, "Hey, I'm a printer now. Let's check out this network," right? So there's ways to bypass these controls. It's very hard to defend against something like this, and that's why at the network layer you need to be logging these connections that occur from anomalies, right? So people that are doing things from places that they shouldn't be doing it from. You need to be able to see that. Bad guys.
Printer!
Fucking printers.
The printer is owned. That's the moral of the
Save
story.
paper.
So, really quick, we talked about actionable purple teaming, which ironically acronyms out to APT, so you are welcome. You're very welcome. But I really want to give a huge shout out to Eric, and not Brian, for helping me come up with these 17 different test scenarios, and I'm hoping that you guys find these useful as well. So these are 17 specific tests that we were able to come up with to test our detection, our defenses, and the abuse policies of. And this is kind of what actionable purple teaming looks like, right? You think of every possible way somebody could abuse this, and somebody could use this for bad, and you go through it, and you pray that every defense that you put in place actually works, which, as Eric has just shown, it doesn't. So, I don't know. But you do find a lot of really interesting things about this. So, lessons learned. There's a huge value add for having purple teaming go on between the red and blue team together. We're the same people. Eric and I do the same thing. We're trying to secure our organization. We just go about it in different ways. And there's nothing to be like, hey Eric, I am not angry about this. In fact, this is hysterical to me because it just makes me want to be that much better.
We love you, Eric!
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody.
And hopefully,
Not that bad.
no.
Like a teddy bear.
Yeah, Eric's great. Eric's just taught me so much in the last year. And hopefully, both teams have learned from this exercise, right? We've made each other better. We've improved each other so that the low-hanging fruit is gone, and now we can focus on the really serious shit that might hit us. Run-as can kind of make you a ninja. You pretty much blend in with the environment. You disappear into the trees. So for blue teamers, kind of the takeaway here is you need to stop them before they can get to this second stage. And I know a lot of people harp on this, but it took 17 tests for us to say, oh my God, we have to stop them before they get on our endpoint. We have to stop them before they get our credentials, because look at what they can do. And we will never see it. Or we might, and it might be too late. Also, actionable purple teaming takes a lot of work and collaboration. We are very, very lucky to have a local team in Kansas City who are very collaborative and also pretty much SecKC 2.0. I'm not gonna brag too much, but we're pretty awesome.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that? But we're all friends, we all want to work together, and we talk every day. We try to form these relationships and build each other up. And that gets really hard with remote teams. So you have to keep at it, even when it sucks, and even when it's hard, and even when the pen test team is kicking your ass, because inevitably they end up doing it, right? Blue team's a thankless job. But you gotta keep working at it, because we're only making each other better. And maybe one day you wanna be a red teamer, and you need to see what they can do. And finally, there's a lot of hidden things going on in your environment you have no idea about, right? And these kinds of exercises will help you expose them. We found things that I was like, I'm not even looking for run ad, like I'm looking for run ads abuse, and I'm finding other things, and I'm like, why? Like, why? Why is this a thing? Why do we have people hanging out with these domain admin credentials? Why do we have these registry keys still open? Like, oh, why are none of our security tools being deployed to this specific region, right? Like, it starts exposing things that you're like, I never thought about this. There's no way to trigger it. I see you pointing at me, Bill.
I laughed at the security tools in a certain region.
But it highlights things that you're like, there's no good way to check unless you go in and you try to be bad and you try to do it. So really quick, I'm gonna end on resources, but I'm also gonna pose a few questions to the audience. So a huge shout out to our colleague, Thomas Gardner. He's at InfoSec Intern.
InfoSec Intern.
Yeah, InfoSec Intern. He did a huge amount of work on this. He couldn't be here tonight because he's in Denver for some reason. I don't know why we let him do that.
It's not even that cool.
I know. But he did a huge amount of work for us. I'd encourage you to go follow him. He's a really, really smart guy. Like, put a lot of work into this. Just couldn't be here to present for us. Obviously, like, Microsoft, this is your fault, so you better have a lot of documentation, which they do. TechNet, my friends, please read about it, learn about it. Also, you can take a look at the PowerShell run as brethren under PowerShell Suite, and learn more about hardening. Citrix did a really great article, and ZDNet kind of talked about remote access Trojans that utilize run as to elevate their permissions. But before we go, we talked about actual purple teaming. I didn't really talk about anything specific, but I'm going to pose to you my two favorite scenarios for getting started with actionable purple teaming. So can I get a quick hand raise of how many of you are blue teamers or self-described blue teamers in the audience? Okay, cool. So like 5. Dope. So good news. If any of you are looking for
Red teamers? Sorry.
No, don't do it. How many of you are red teamers?
Equally is not so.
I just didn't. No one wants to raise their hand. So, cool fact, right? They say there's like, what, 5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs by 2020, or like 10 million, or I don't know. Everyone keeps exaggerating it. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Most of those are in blue team. So if you're looking for a job tonight, go look for the people who are hiring for incident response, forensics, SOC analysts, those types of things. There's a lot of unfilled positions there. But for actionable purple teaming, for the blue teamers, here's a question I pose to you. And you can answer me in person, or you can answer me on Twitter at John Viller. It's the beginning of our slides. Given your current level of access, your current knowledge of your organization, and if I give you 12 hours to be the worst person possible, what is the worst thing you could do to your company?
I heard a lot of giggles out there.
Okay, right? So that's something to think about, because somebody else in the world is thinking like that when you might not be. So that's a really good intro to actionable purple teaming. And for the red teamers, so this might be a little bit more fun, I don't know. I'm gonna give you an unlimited budget of $500,000 to deploy any, not you, Bill, you don't have any money.
You can't say unlimited.
Unlimited. A limited budget of $500,000 with no strings attached to deploy any security control. What do you deploy, and why do you deploy it? And that's it. Something to think about, something to chew on. I think we can open up to questions if we want, but that's it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be downstairs.